Rachel, what are you doing? Stop it! Anyways, grab a blanket, turn off your lights for true scary stories with creepy women named Rachael. Rachel! Rachel! Psycho relatives. When I was 16, almost 3 years ago, I found it very hard to go on with my life. I was depressed and knew I couldn't really confide in anybody. I have great relationships with my parents. I can talk to them about anything except what I'm really actually feeling about. I don't blame them, it's just that they have this image in their head about who I am, but it's not true, and I do not want to shatter it. Anyways, on to the story now. So my grades plummeted. I went from a 10 grade C GPA to barely making an 8. I couldn't talk it to my friends, so for them, I was the funniest person in the group, right? So you get the picture. I'm in a very, very bad place. The only option that came to my mind was my cousin, who is about 7 months younger than me. Let's call her Rachael. Well, she is my maternal uncle's daughter. Although my mom and uncle are very close, his daughter, son, and wife are a different story. My aunt is also the really loony type of person. She threw a tantrum at my mom's wedding because my dad had a better paying job than my uncle. Then she got pregnant as soon as my parents announced they were pregnant with me. She has made her daughter the same way. She copies every single thing I do. She even took up the same subjects at me at school, cuts her hair the same way I do, got same highlights when I did, and wants to get in the same profession as me. Now, I knew it wasn't a grand idea what she was visiting us, and I just blurted it out. Now, this girl convinced me that I was right, that I'd never be a good person, I'd stayed emotionally alone forever, and that it was better that I ended my life. Then she got me drunk at this point. I locked myself in the bathroom and tried to commit suicide, but in my drunken state, I couldn't cut deep enough, so I woke up with a few hours later, sprawled on the cold bathroom floor, and a puddle of my own blood to my phone ringing. It was my mom. They wouldn't be back for a few days. The loss of blood made me dizzy, but I managed to get out of my clothes and stand beneath the shower for a few seconds. Then I threw myself on my bed and passed out. When I woke up around 2 p.m., I had managed to sleep through the afternoon and the night and into the next day. I found Rachael, her mom and her brother having pizza in the living room. They had this weird expression when they saw me. Disappointment, maybe. I don't remember much. All I remember is getting a bar and water and passing out again in my bedroom. I was woken up the next day by my friends who had come over. They were concerned because Rachael had told them I was pregnant, which was not true. That combined with me not answering my phone for 3 days made them worried. I had made some lame excuse about my cell going bust to them. The truth is that I still haven't told anyone about the incident, but I told my parents to cut ties with them because they were weird and jealous people, to which my family agreed. So now we aren't in touch, but I still see them at family gatherings and such. So, psycho relatives, let's not meet. Crazy woman who had taken my sister. When I was 5 years old, I visited my great-grandmother's with my parents and siblings. It was wintertime. The year was 2004 in the small Polish village. Children were playing outside without constant supervision by adults. Me, my brother, my sister, and a bunch of our cousins were playing in the small yard between two houses. My great-grandma was living in one, and the other belonged to my aunt. The whole thing was surrounded by fence, and our parents were looking at us from house, so nobody thinking it was dangerous. It was getting late but not dark yet when a woman that we didn't know came and said my mom wanted my sister home. She used my mother's name, Rachael. But I'd never seen this woman in my life, so I asked her who she was. She said her name was also Rachael, and that she's girlfriend of my older cousin. I thought maybe mom wanted my sister at home early, since she was only 3, and the dog didn't bark, so we went home with the woman. My sister was the type of child that would go anywhere with anybody. About 5 minutes later, my great-grandma yells dinner out the window, so we all came back inside, and my mother asked, "Where is my sister?" I told her that a woman named Rachael, and my mother went pale. She and nobody else didn't know anybody named Rachael. So all adults bursted out to look for my sister. One of my aunts stayed with us. At this point, it was getting dark, and the whole village is in the middle of the woods. One of the biggest woods in the whole country. Pretty much if you get lost in there, you die. They found my sister pretty quickly with this woman at the bus stop. She didn't want to give my sister back. She was claiming it was her own daughter. Police had been called. They arrived and sorted out the whole situation. They arrested this woman, Rachael. Now, the craziest part, she was released without any charges. We still, to this day, don't know who she was, what she wanted, and how she got all that information on us. So, creepy woman who had stolen my sister. Let's not meet again. What Rachel heard. Been lurking for a while, and I've been tempted to write a few stories, but I am a terrible writer. I've been roofied twice, stalked by a crazy chick, chased by a machete-wielding man, and held at gunpoint, so I've all forgotten about this story until yesterday. This is a really long story, so sorry for that. This story takes place about 2 years ago in LA. I was 22 years old at the time. I met Rachael about 2 months prior to the incident, but we had hung out every day in that short amount of time. I can go all day and night about how perfect she was, but you guys don't have time for that. Just to know that besides being beautiful, smart, and spontaneous, she was also fearless. She made me go bungee jumping, brought a tarantula on a whim, and once made an entire bar erupt in cheers after breaking some dude's nose that slapped her when she declined his request. We never defined our relationship, but I guess you can say we were exclusive friends with benefits, as ridiculous as that sounds. But I think that's because we were having so much fun so fast, and we didn't want to risk what we had. We both knew our feelings ran deeper than that. This may be important later, but I'm not even sure yet. It was a summer night, and we had been at the beach for a bonfire with my friend Peter, his nephew Ricky, only 2 years younger than him, and his nephew's girlfriend, but had to leave because alcohol was not allowed. It was already midnight, but we didn't want to call it a night yet, so we decided to go to Rick's house to play some beer pong. We arrived at Rick's house at around 1 a.m. in the morning, and he motions for us to wait in the car, as it seems that he and his girlfriend had gone into some type of an argument. 10 minutes pass, and I asked Peter to pop the trunk so I could get a beer from the ice chest. He does it, but almost simultaneously says, "She's still there." He's looking in the rear view, so I turn and see what he's looking at, and it's this lady, several hundred feet down the street, just standing there, but facing the other direction. He explains that she's been standing in the same spot directly below a streetlight since we got there. Now, I continued to get out of the car to get the beers, then close the trunk, when Peter and Rachael both say fuck and start laughing. I turn to find that she is in the same spot, but now facing us. Weird, but whatever, right? I get back into the car and we lose track of time talking about planned camping trip or something. But it's now been 30 minutes and I need another beer. So I get out and I see the lady, but now the streetlight she was under has gone out and she was under the other one, a little closer to us. But either way, now we can see this lady's face and she's looking down the street emotionless with a blank stare. Now that was still weird, but we got the green light to enter Rick's house, so we quickly just forgot about it. Now, we've been playing beer pong for about an hour and we had completely forgot about the weird lady outside, but we also ran out of beer, so we sent Peter to go retrieve the ice chest from the car. He comes back empty-handed saying, "Frig, man, I'm not going out there again." We were confused for a moment, but looked out the window to find that the streetlight she was under before had gone out, and she was now at the streetlight directly in front of the house and car. In our drunken state, we were laughing, giving Peter shit about being a little bitch and whatnot, but it was still pretty creepy, to be honest. Rachael, being the badass she is, says, "Move, pussies, I'll go get it." Not wanting to be outdone, I followed. We approached the lady, but she still did not turn to face us. Rachael goes up to her and asks, "Sweetie, are you okay? Do you need help?" Nothing. Now we are directly in front of her. Her eyes were glazed over, but she was unblinking, just staring basically through us. Rachael tries to communicate again, this time placing her hand on her arm. Nothing. At this point, she needs help, so Rachael tells me to call 911. I take out my phone and am about to dial, but look up to see that the lady had turned her head to face me. I pause momentarily, but decide to continue. As soon as I look down, I hear "No!" and the lady slaps my phone down onto the floor. This had me shocked for a few seconds, but I realize that she is now turned towards Rachael and is whispering something into her ear. I'm staring still in shock, just watching her whisper to Rachael for what seemed like forever, but was probably only like 20 seconds before she turns and runs off into the darkness. The police came, and I decided I'd let Rachael talk to them. I went inside, and Peter and Rick were cracking up. I did too. It was just a what the fuck situation that all I could do was kind of laugh. We hear Rachael enter and I go over to ask how it went. And she gives me a forced smile and just said, "Good. I'm kind of tired. Can you give me a ride home?" I was pretty buzzed, so I proposed a taxi because she seemed pretty adamant. We get to her apartment and I asked the taxi to wait outside, but she quickly turns and asks if I didn't want to stay. Now, I've stayed there before, but this time her eyes seemed to beg me to stay, so I agreed to stay. That was the last time I saw Rachael. Until last night. For the past 2 years, all I've seen from Rachael were texts on birthdays and holidays. I was confused for a long time, as I didn't know what had happened. I mentioned earlier we had a camping trip planned amongst other things, and we're so inseparable during that time that I was at a loss for what had actually happened. Last night was the first time that made me consider that this event may have contributed to that. I was at a bar waiting for a friend to get off work when I hear someone call my name. It was Rachael. I hadn't seen her in 2 years. I was nervous, but we began talking. It was just like before and until the inevitable. "I haven't seen you since..." talk. I began to retell the events of that night, and then she gets quiet. It wasn't until I asked what the lady said to her that I realized this. She gave me a look that I can only explain as, "Please let it go." Her friends noticed and asked if she was okay. At this point, I decide to back off from the subject. I walk her and her friends out the bar and ask where she's parked the car. That was answered by her friend's high-pitched, "Huh, Rachael always parks under the nearest street lamp." I don't remember for sure, but I'm fairly certain that she never made that effort before. So, me and Rachael have made plans to hang out again. I don't know if it'll be like before, but I'm hopeful. As for knowing what Rachael heard, your guess is as good as mine.